This brief demonstration shows Combustion's particles and tracking tools used to augment a 3ds Max animation. This could be done with any 3D animation software. It's worth pointing out. I just happen to be using discrete 3ds Max for obvious reasons. I've got a pretty straightforward animation here of a plane flying along a path, and it's over no background, and there's nothing really else loaded other than the plane and the path. Let's see the finished result where we're headed with this, and you can see that obviously we've added a sky background and we've got some particles coming off of the plane. Traditionally in a 3D environment, in any 3D environment, these particles and the smoke trail would take a little bit longer because they're kind of a volumetric or a voxel based effect a lot of times. But what we can do is add these after the fact and after the render using Combustion's particle and tracking tools. So let's go and look at Combustion and see what we've got. We have our plane rendered out, and we actually rendered this over an alpha channel. Combustion also lets you work with pre-multiplied alpha channels, so you can see if I come through, and you may be familiar with the pre-multiplication issue. Combustion will recognize that, no problem. And now what we've got, let me go back into Max and show you one little trick that we did. We set this up so that our airplane can be hidden, and I have this little white dot that is glued to the geometry of the airplane. So what I've done is rendered this white dot out separately, and I get something that looks like this. So here's just a white dot that represents the tail of our plane, or the position rather of the tail of our plane. Now this again could be done in any 3D program. It doesn't have to be done in 3D Studio. Now what I'm going to do is apply a particle operator to this, and you can see that I've got all kinds of different particle presets. These are actually not footage on the hard drive. These are preset particle types that ship with Combustion right out of the box. This is not a plugin either. All these effects that you're seeing right now are being rendered by the graphics card of my computer. And what you can do is, say for example, take this shooting smoke, and that looks like something where we'd want it to be as a starting point. I can edit these and make them completely customizable to be whatever particle system I want. Well, here's an airplane trail I've already got pre-made for this brief demonstration, and I'm going to go ahead and apply a point emitter. I've got other types of emitters, line, ring, and so on, and also deflectors within here. Well, I'm going to go to a frame where this tracker dot is enabled and just put one emitter down, and then I'm going to real quickly select that emitter and come into Combustion's tracker. Now I'm going to tell the tracker to follow this emitter, and you can see that Combustion's tracking that in near real time, even while drawing the particles for that matter, and it's going to go back off frame. Well, I have some head and tail frames where the emitter or the tracking marker wasn't really visible yet. Now what I can do is go into the timeline and look at the function curves or the animation curves of those keyframes. Now let's go to the first frame and just simply add a key, and all we need to do is eyeball these curves, and you can see that this curve down here wants to continue down. Let's go to the last frame and add a key, and this one wants to continue up. And you can see that I'm getting near real-time feedback in my viewport as I adjust this position of this particle. So let's go ahead and hit play. Now you can see that I've got my particles coming through, and I can go back into the particle operator and edit any attribute about this, maybe the color of it. Let's just go an extreme example. I can say red, and while this is playing back, I can edit these things, say for example the size of my particles, the strength, and so on, much faster than I would be doing in a 3D program. So once I get this the way that I want it, I just simply cut this operator off, and I pasted it on my original clip. Now you can see one more problem that we have to eliminate is that our particles are being applied over top of the plane. Well, we had an original of the airplane on an alpha channel, so all I've done is taken that original layer and put it up on top of the layer with the particles. And lastly, you can see that I've really quickly just dropped a sky behind it. So I've got a sky layer, and that's just a 2D image. I've got an airplane that's just the top version, and I've got a version with all the particles. And one last little thing I can do is take this top layer and maybe just color correct it a slight bit, and I'll turn that on and off so you can see the difference. And I'm just tinting that foreground layer a little bit blue. So what we end up with is a finished piece where I've got volumetric particle effects coming out of an airplane, and I did them as a post process after the 3D render.